In 2007, 3-year-old Madeleine McCann disappeared from her family's holiday apartment in Portugal. The man suspected of kidnapping and murdering her is currently in prison for rape, but could be released in a matter of months. That could spell the end of the Madeleine McCann case.
Only a new conviction could keep him behind bars.
He could just disappear.
Now, as prosecutors race to build a case, we reveal new evidence from secret police files.
It's hard for anyone to comprehend what Christian B has been accused of.
A dossier of photographs and documents collected from the suspects' hideouts.
Swimsuits for girls in very small sizes.
Evidence that links Christian B to key locations of interest.
For the first time, one really saw Christian B connected to a Maddie location.
And stories of child abduction written by the suspect.
A very small girl enters the room. She's definitely not older than 5.
For me, in my mind, there is no doubt anymore that Christian B had an obsession with snatching little children.
But is it enough to finally bring the McCann case to court and end one of the world's biggest unsolved crimes? My name is Rob Pattinson. For the last year, I've been investigating the prime suspect in the Madeleine McCann case, Christian B. Through my coverage, I've met other reporters across Europe, leading journalists who were on the case from the start.
Can you tell me how you first learned at the Madeleine McCann case?
Back in 2007, I was a correspondent for Bild in London, and one of my jobs was to monitor the English press. All the papers were full with the same story of this English toddler that had vanished in Portugal. Within the next few days, you could see that this case was somewhat different. The focus that the media, not only in the UK, put on this case was somewhat different.
If you work in newspapers, a lot of kids go missing a lot of the time. You don't often write about it because by the time it goes to press, they've been found again. Within 24 hours, she hadn't been found, and alarm bells just start ringing.
As in any reporting job of this kind, what you need to do is to get there and find out as much as you possibly can about what's happened. Where's this little girl gone?
Initially, there was just no explanation for it. She was there, half an hour later, she wasn't there.
Madeleine was a particularly photogenic little girl. They were a very well-to-do middle-class family. Jerry was a consultant cardiologist, Kate a doctor.
We knew that they were religious, and we knew that they had 3 children. We knew that they'd gone on holiday with a group of people, and we knew that she'd gone missing that night from the apartment while they were having dinner.
We would again like to appeal for any information, however small, that may lead to the safe return of Madeleine.
Madeleine had disappeared from a holiday apartment that was about no more than 50 metres from where her parents had last had a tapas dinner. They walked out of their apartment. You go down through a gate, you walk along a street, then you go through another gate, then you go inside the Ocean Club complex. They were in sight of the apartment block where their children were sleeping, as far as we know. Crucially, though, it also became clear that they'd left the patio door open. Obviously, whoever took Madeleine took advantage of that situation, and while their backs were turned, had taken her away.
Being on the ground, I thought, how can anyone be so brazen to break into this apartment while the parents are just a few yards away? This must be someone with such a big criminal energy that is really difficult to imagine, someone who really doesn't care.
In 2016, police were called to an address in East Germany. An abandoned factory owned by a man living on the fringes of society, Christian B. Investigators knew he was a criminal, with convictions for sexual abuse of children dating back to the 90s. But they had no concept of what else they would find.
I feel not well there. I feel always that has a very, very dark and creepy atmosphere. Very much isolated, a very hidden place. My name is Jutta Rabe. I'm a German investigative journalist and I have been on this case for a couple of years. A neighbor, he was walking his dog and the dog was running onto this compound of Christian B. The dog started to dig because he smelled something and he did not let it go. So his owner had to climb over the fence and get his dog. Yeah? And by that he saw that there was sticking out a little tiny triangle of a red either carpet or blanket or whatever. And he pulled on that and the smell which came out from this hole, from the soil, was this kind of corpse smell.
The source of the smell was the body of a dead dog. Beneath it was a plastic bag. Inside, a wallet containing 6 USB sticks and 2 memory cards. As police scoured the compound, they uncovered a series of disturbing items, images of which we can now reveal, including 75 toddlers' swimsuits, preschooler bikes and toys, 3 working guns with ammunition, black market untraceable weapons. Police also discovered a mask and bizarre homemade images of how Christian B. might look in it. And there was a briefcase. Inside were pictures of young children with a list of phone numbers. Police knew they were onto a highly dangerous criminal, but they had no idea how important the discoveries could become for the Madeleine McCann case.
From that day, I think everybody was a bit more wary. Everybody kept a bit of a closer eye on their kids. Everybody was worried because there were people out there that might do this.
Jerry and I would just like to express our sincere gratitude and thanks to everybody. But please continue to pray for Madeleine. She's lovely.
I spent probably the best part of a month there to start with, and nothing was happening. The police weren't guiding us at all. We weren't getting any steers as to where they were searching, what their ideas might be. Everything was played very close to their chest.
Criminal experience tells you that the first 48 hours are the most crucial when a person disappears. And if you don't follow the leads in the first 48 hours properly, it gets more and more difficult. And this is what happened at Madeleine. The first 48 hours, basically all criminal mistakes have been made that could be made. Numerous people were walking in and out of the apartment, touching windows, touching window panes, touching stuff in there, touching door handles and all that. So a lot of crucial evidence might have been destroyed.
Every day that went by, things got a little bit more frantic, a little bit more worrying, a little bit more concerning.
But then Portuguese police decided to do something really shocking.
Kate and Jerry have both been declared arguidos with no bail conditions and no charges have been brought against them. The investigation continues. David, are they still insisting?
I'd never heard the word arguido before. I'd never heard that. And then it suddenly appears in a press release and it's translated to us, it's suspect. Kate and Jerry are suspects over the disappearance of their daughter.
I can't see anything, I'm afraid.
To me, it kind of looked like the police on the ground didn't know where else to look.
The Portuguese police were deeply unprofessional. Why would they turn on the parents because they don't have the wit to find who's really responsible?
Police believe that person is Christian B. They suspect he not only kidnapped Madeleine, but murdered her. Cell data has placed the suspect's phone in Praia de Luz on the night of Madeleine's disappearance. Now, our investigation can reveal that police are in possession of short stories written by Christian B., which he was working on years after Madeleine McCann was taken. They give an insight into his disturbing abduction and abuse fantasies. The Sun has translated these stories into English from the original German. Parts of them are too graphic to disclose.
When she came to the car with her little daughter in her hand and opened the back door, I was already standing behind the two of them, holding a rag soaked in ether. I forcefully pushed it into the woman's face. At first, she fought hard, but I held her tight. The girls sat in the car and watched me with wide, horrified eyes. When everything was done and the two bodies were hidden in the darkness, I got my van, loaded up my loot, and drove away. I jump in and pick up the shaking bundle. Big, scared eyes look at me. I carry her out of the car, close the doors, and walk her into the house. After I closed this door too, I thought to myself, welcome to paradise.
In another story, he imagines a blonde-haired girl of 4 being presented to him to abuse.
I look excitedly at the door. A very small girl enters the room. She's definitely not older than 5. Blonde, long hair tied in pigtails bounces cheekily back and forth as she comes towards me. This is maid Annalie. She is 4 years old. I feel like I'm in paradise right now.
For me, in my mind, there is no doubt anymore that Christian B. had an obsession with snatching little children, little girls especially.
After 2007, Madeleine McCann became one of the most recognisable faces in the world. But for 13 years, the case appeared to lack any real progress. But secretly, a team of German agents were closing the net on a suspect. By 2020, they were ready to make their bombshell claims public.
Im Zusammenhang mit dem Verschwinden des 3-jährigen britischen Mädchens Madeleine Beth McCann am 3. Mai 2007 aus einer Apartmentanlage in Praia da Luz in Portugal ermittelt die Staatsanwaltschaft Braunschweig gegen einen 43-jährigen deutschen Staatsangehörigen wegen des Verdachts des Mordes. Daraus können Sie entnehmen, dass wir davon ausgehen, dass das Mädchen tot ist.
A German prosecutor who I'd never heard of, called Hans Christian Walters, announces that they have a suspect in the Madeleine McCann case.
Prosecutors also revealed that they were working on the assumption that Madeleine was dead and that they were conducting an investigation into her murder. Referred to as Christian B. because of Germany's privacy laws, the suspect was already in prison for rape.
Bei den Beschuldigten handelt es sich um einen mehrfach vorbestraften Sexualstraftäter, der unter anderem auch wegen sexuellen Missbrauchs von Kindern bereits verurteilt wurde. Derzeit verbüßt er in anderer Sache.
Since it was a state prosecutor who had announced that in a press conference, there was no doubt that the authorities were serious about it. For the first time, there was a suspect, a real suspect. That meant something.
While Christian B.'s identity was made public, police kept their evidence secret. But journalists in Germany began digging into his past. It emerged that he was a criminal with a history of sexual offences against children.
You can see a criminal pattern evolving at a very young age, when he was still a teenager, committing the first pedophile crime when he was hardly grown up.
When he was 17, he had sexually abused a 6-year-old girl on a playground.
In 1994, Christian B. fled to Portugal to escape a 2-year youth custody sentence for the offence. In 1999, he returned to Germany to serve his punishment.
That is a pattern that you can see all through his early adult life, going back and forth, and whenever he's caught doing something wrong, evading, disappearing, and drifting back to another country. We spoke to a couple of ex-girlfriends and ex-partners, and they painted a picture of a Jekyll and Hyde personality. He could be friendly, he could be charming, he could be smart. But on the other hand, there were also ex-girlfriends that described him as all of a sudden showing another face, especially when he was drunk, becoming violent, threatening people.
He is a guy with, I would say, two faces. Friends have told me he can be very charming, but then comes the guy in the night.
We were able to draw a picture of a person that was drifting between Germany and Portugal mainly, that was evading punishment whenever he could, committing a crime, being convicted for it, and then disappearing before the punishment could be served.
We know that in 2005, Christian B was living in Praia da Luz, in a bedsit on the edge of the village. We know from his court case that his break-ins were prolific, and his offending became much more serious over time.
He had a certain system. He first of all dressed totally black with a mask on, only left the eyes out. He had tools with him. He had already found out how is the best way to break into that house or apartment, who is living there. So he was very prepared for these burglaries he did. And what he was mainly after was not only money, he wanted passports.
The suspect was convicted of a rape that he had committed in Praia da Luz. An elderly American woman had been raped in her house that is not far from the coast. She was raped numerous times in horrendous fashion. This case went unsolved for quite some time until prosecutors and investigators found a hair of our suspect on the bedsheet of the woman that had been raped. So with this hair, investigators had firm forensic proof that this suspect had committed the rape.
Christian B would not face justice for that crime until 2019. When the McCanns arrived in Portugal in 2007, he was a free and dangerous man. Data gathered from a mobile phone mast shows a call was made to Christian B's mobile phone at around 7:30 p.m, placing his phone in the area on the night of her disappearance.
They were taking turns to go back, put their heads around the door, make sure everything was okay, and then come back again. There was no reason for them to possibly suspect that anything untoward could happen. The place was safe. Nothing like this had ever happened there before. They went from that situation to every parent's worst nightmare. It was Kate that made the fateful discovery between 9 and 10. She went to check on Madeleine, it was her turn, pulled the patio door aside. The bed was empty. She came out and shouted out, obviously with some anguish, "Someone's taken Madeleine."
Using witness statements and reports from the time, the Sun has pieced together a plausible route any abductor might have taken. We know that sniffer dogs followed Madeleine's scent along the back of the apartment to this main road. From there, any kidnapper could have crossed here through unlit scrubland, rather than walk by the Ocean Club and risk being seen by the McCanns having dinner. The captor would probably have come downhill to this junction. Significantly, this is where a family of holidaymakers witnessed a man carrying a young girl.
So they crossed over here and they describe a man carrying a child as if he would not be used to carry a child. The witnesses described the child, and it very much was a description of Maddie.
Police know that he drove a Jaguar XJ6 with German number plates. The day after Madeleine disappeared, that car was re-registered under the name of an acquaintance in Germany. In 2016, when police raided Christian B's factory hideout, among the raft of evidence, they found the same model of this Jaguar with unknown substances inside.
In the trunk, there was lots of chemicals inside. Unfortunately, the German police did not identify each of these chemicals.
Search dogs lost the scent of Madeleine in the car park at the village church. Where the captor went next has remained a mystery.
In 2023, the Portuguese police were actively searching an area called the Unveils Dam, about an hour's drive out of Praia de Luz. It became very clear that it was a major search and that they were looking for something specific. All we found when we got to the actual ground they'd been looking at was a series of boreholes. They seemed to have been taking soil samples of some sort. We never knew for sure why they were there.
Our investigation can now reveal evidence that directly connects Christian B to this key location of interest. During the 2016 raid of his German box factory, police uncovered a sat-nav. The data on it showed Christian B used the secluded reservoir as a regular hideout.
We understand this is an area where Christian B would spend time and hang out. He'd come and hide among the trees.
Yeah, obviously he spent lots of time here. He said to friends, he calls it his little paradise here even. He liked very much to spend time on his own with his camper van or with any other of his cars and go to places where no other people could trace him or where he wasn't seen. He went here to be totally on his own, and we don't know what else he did here.
Police also uncovered a series of photographs showing Christian B at the Unveils Dam location. One has been doctored to show how he would look in a mask. Others are too explicit to show in full.
Most of these pictures show him naked in some weird sexual posings. For whom did he take these photos?
In the wake of Madeleine's disappearance, police launched an unprecedented search operation across the Algarve. Amid the chaos, Christian B left Portugal. By 2012, he had settled in the German industrial city of Braunschweig.
He had bought a little kiosk, basically a little corner shop, where he was living in the back room.
It was a perfect cover-up in one way for attracting women. He had many girlfriends there, attracting children.
We also spent some time in what is called a Kleingarten in Germany, which is a little patch of green where they have a little hut on it. And then he also bought a weird derelict box factory.
Documents show he bought the property in 2008.
This compound is 11,000 hectares big, and he had a motorhome and he lived inside that. So he made like a camping on his own property, and it was chaotic in there.
During a separate police investigation, while the suspect was living in the kiosk in Braunschweig, police uncovered a Skype chat suggesting he was involved in the distribution of child abuse videos. In one exchange, under a pseudonym, Christian B openly discusses his desires to take children with a fellow paedophile.
Even the other one whom he is chatting with gets a little bit shocked, even though that is a pedophile himself, but he obviously gets a little bit shocked. You can see it by this reaction, what he is typing into that chat. It clearly shows that he was part of a network talking to other pedophiles. I don't know how many more Skype chats or other chats have been found, but this one is revealing very much.
Christian B would eventually receive a 15-month jail term for the abuse of a 5-year-old girl. In 2019, while in prison, he was found guilty of the rape of the elderly American woman in Praia de Luz in 2005. It is that offence for which he remains incarcerated. Despite being named a prime suspect in 2020, Christian B has never been charged over the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, and his lawyers have denied he had any involvement. In the 7 years he has been behind bars, he has refused to speak to investigators about the Madeleine McCann case. But in that time, former associates of the suspect who committed thefts with him in Portugal have spoken out. One man told how he went to police with suspicions about his former friend. This man is known as Helge B.
Helge B says that in 2008, so about a year after Madeleine had disappeared, he's been at a music festival in Spain, and that Christian B was also there. They started to talk, according to Helge B, about this Maddie situation, and Helge B claims to have said, "I'm kind of curious that a child can disappear just like that." And according to Helge B, Christian B replied to that, "Well, she didn't scream." Helge B then says he reacted to that in kind of a surprised way and looked at him, and then, according to Helge B, Christian B noticed what he had just said. And then, according to Helge B, Christian B not only left the scene but also left the music festival overnight. And Helge B, up to today, is convinced that that was the moment that the suspect confessed the abduction of Madeleine McCann to him.
In 2019, Helge B gave evidence that helped convict Christian B of the rape of the American woman in Praia de Luz. Despite this, some have continued to question his reliability as a witness. But our investigation can reveal that Christian B was in fact in the area of the music festival, as Helge says. These are handwritten and signed insurance documents Christian B filed, detailing a camper van crash he had near the festival in Orgiva, Spain in March 2008.
He himself has announced that he, with his motorhome, was damaging another car on a gas station in Orgiva. And exactly on that evening, exactly with his own words, he has described it. There were witnesses about that, and it was 6 o'clock in the evening. They are handwritten and hand-signed also by Christian B.
With Christian B's 2019 sentence approaching its end, Madeleine detectives realised they needed a new conviction to keep him behind bars and buy them more time. Taking him to court too early for the McCann case could risk failure, and under German law, they would never get a second chance.
While investigating these hints around the Maddie case, prosecution got indications that Christian B might have committed other crimes. So what prosecution did is they put together the information on the other crimes and then pressed charges around these accusations. This can be understood as sort of a try in the waters, because the court that dealt with these charges is the one that would have to deal with a possible Maddie case as well. In early 2024, when it was clear that there's going to be a court case against Christian B, although it's not going to be around the Maddie case, there was media frenzy. It felt like a sort of prelude. Now we're gonna meet all the people involved in the Madeleine McCann investigation, in this case, the suspect, the witnesses, the lawyers, the prosecution, that will build this case around Madeleine if there ever is one. The courtroom at Braunschweig Court was packed with people, packed to capacity. There was not a single free seat. People knew, looking at the clock, that very soon a door on the right would open and the man they were waiting for would walk in. The man prosecution thinks to be the killer of Madeleine McCann. Christian B was charged with 5 different offenses, 3 rapes and 2 cases of sexual assault of minors. The 3rd rape case was probably the strongest. I don't think any spectator on this day will ever forget what he heard in court.
In 2004, alleged victim Hazel was 20 and working as a holiday rep in Portugal. She waived her anonymity to testify.
It was just an average normal day. I went to work From there, I would have went around to a small little bar where my then boyfriend was working. So that night in particular, I was no different. The only difference there would have been that I went home alone. I walked about, I would say, 100 metres over a small footbridge and into the front doors of the hotel where I lived. And I went through the reception of the hotel, walked into my room, lay on the bed. I was woken by my name. Somebody called my name. Before I even opened my eyes, I knew there was something wrong. That's when fear, beyond anything you could ever describe in words, hits. I just seen this tall black figure of what I knew to be a man by his voice standing over me in the room. He had a knife. I'd say it was around 12 inches long, kind of like half moon shape under it. I didn't think rape, I just thought murder. I thought, this person wants to kill me. He was the one who called my name and told me not to scream. He had pulled me up by the hair and positioned me in the position he wanted on the bed. I had a picture of my little sister up on the wall beside my bed. I had said, that she was my baby, that please don't hurt me like that, I have to go back to her. He dragged me by the hair out of the bedroom area to the breakfast bar. He used my belt to tie my hands behind my back and set up his video camera. He asked me if I was afraid, and I said no. I was so afraid. Like my whole body was shaking. But something in me, I just didn't want to give in to him. Like if I was gonna go out, I'm not giving him my fear. And that's when he whipped me. Take your breath kind of pain. He raped me over the counter as well, on the camera. He said, "You're afraid now?" I said, "Yeah."
In court, Hazel said her attacker wore a mask, but she could see they had blue eyes.
The mask had holes around the eyes that you could see the bottom of his eyebrows, so that I could see he was fair-haired, or he had fair eyebrows. I could see his eyes, all black, with eyes.
Despite Hazel's testimony, the judge was not satisfied that she could identify her abuser from his eyes alone. In October 2024, he was found not guilty and cleared of all 5 offences. The prosecution has appealed the decisions.
We believe that the decision is wrong, so we will appeal to the Bundesgerichtshof, the German Supreme Court.
Hazel has always maintained her attacker had a raised mark on his thigh. Christian B's defence team have said there was no mark. But our files contain new evidence that could link this description to the suspect. This is a police report of an examination in 2018 which records him having a scar on his outer right thigh. The files also reveal a photograph of another scar on the inside of Christian B's right thigh. This evidence was not put before Hazel's trial. The court has not been able to provide an explanation for this. Some justice figures in Germany have been baffled by the failure to include certain evidence.
I think the policemen that have been at court, they would wish that they can present the evidence again, because they did all the work and they want to see the work at court. So when there's really such evidence, there should be an appeal and another court should have a look.
Is it a concern for you Christian B could be released into society?
As far as I know about him, it should be a concern of all of us.
Christian B's acquittal means he could be released as early as September 2025.
The prosecution hoped to get a guilty verdict that would A, keep the accused in jail, and B, pave the way for a Medi-case. Well, this hope wasn't fulfilled at all.
Legally, there is no connection between last year's court case and the McCann investigation. Prosecutors now face a race against time if they are to bring any charges.
They can opt for applying for a new arrest warrant concerning the Medi-case. They can press charges concerning the Medi-case. But they said on numerous occasions that they don't have enough to charge. So this is a very risky game.
But do prosecutors have more evidence than they have let on? After Christian B was reported as a suspect in 2017, police went back to their files from his box factory and they found something. Our investigation can reveal that officers unearthed an 80-gigabyte hard drive. They are also in possession of a laptop. The existence of these devices alone is a closely guarded secret of German federal agents. It is believed that there are images from the suspect's time in Portugal on these devices and information which may be key in persuading police that Madeleine died shortly after her disappearance. The question remains, is there enough evidence to charge Christian B before he is released from prison?
There's every chance with his track record that he could just disappear. He could get out of Germany and vanish, God knows where. Should that happen, it's very difficult to see where the McCann inquiry might go.